Today, let's see what we can get to. I'm looking forward to today's show. Let's get right to it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about was we got a knot challenge from my good buddy Reggie on the road over in the UK. Reggie put up a video the other day.
Yeah.
We're talking about certain things we have more of, like screwdrivers and whatnot. And Reggie said, and Reggie is the main, as far as hardware goes, there's nobody in the world that has more hardware than Reggie. And he said, what about cotter pins? How many cotter pins is enough? And you know something, I've had a love for cotter pins ever since I was a kid and I built my first go-kart. Now, for those of you that haven't had the opportunity,
I had a mention.
Years ago when we, but this is literally one of these is a lifetime supply for almost everybody. Am I right? How often do we use them now? But you know, for Reggie and myself, you know, it's never enough. Never enough.
Never enough.
There are different types.
So this is my response video to Scoutcrafter. Thank you very much for giving me a mention. And it's like having a chat over the airwaves. Being YouTube, been so far. I'm one end of the globe and Scoutcrafter's the other end of the globe, virtually, more or less, you know. What do they say? Across the pond, yeah. It's a bloody big pond. And it got my juices thinking. So these little boxes is a lifetime supply of pins and clips. And it got me thinking, why have we got this many? What's in our psyche to have these? These boxes are always handy, you know, these plastic boxes full of, you know, the ordinary person just needs to buy one box of springs. This was probably a stocking filler. You know, if Mrs. Scoutcrafter or Mrs. Typewise in the shop or restaurant or all of them, you want a little stocking filler, just get a lifetime supply of springs. That would keep your man happy. Yeah, just so, but you know, me being me, I've not only got a lifetime of new springs, but every spring that's ever come off any job has always gone in the same pots. So that's why I've got a pot of springs. Some pushy springs, some pulley springs, you know, that type of thing. You know, same as these, you just have them. But what I'm going to get to is, first of all, we call them over here, I think Scoutcrafter call them K-clips, which is fine. I think we call them here R-clips. And generally speaking, the farmers use a lot of these, don't they? The old farmers, when they're fitting equipment, they put an R-clip, holds it together. And then, of course, came the anti-loose pin, you know, and different sizes of anti-loose pin. The lot of the truck industry with the body of the sides all clip-in trailers, everyone's sort of familiar with them, different sort of sizes. So what the anti-loose clip does, now they've invented it, is what the R-clip used to do, just keep something on from rattling, you know. If you've got something on there, of course you'd lose the pin, wouldn't you? You could rattle this forever. And I know they do rattle out, but these are anti-loose pins. Yeah, so okay, that's not really to the scale. It just shows you what it does. You put it in, you flip the thing over, you shut it, and that's, you know, on the end of a bodywork, on a truck, on a bumpy road, on a trailer in a farm. These anti-loose clips are really good, and they, you know, they do. There's a scroll pin in there, isn't there? That's another story. Anyway, so, and it's the same, you know, you can do little ones, keeping bits of bodywork on, so you can use little pins, or you can use big thicker pins for the tractors, all that type of thing. So we've got a few of them. And I was thinking about these, you know. Why did we have, why have we got split pins in our head? But why have we got so many and such an assortment? And I'm looking at these and I'm thinking, these are well old. These have come off. Do you know, because we did a bit of rallying and a bit of banger racing and one thing or another, I used to run Avengers and Escorts, and these are, see, the little ones are probably some sort of a throttle linkage somewhere. That's come out of a little throttle linkage, I'm guessing. Yeah. These may have been, that could be a handbrake one, the clip on the end of your handbrake, or it could be, I did pick up some smaller ones a minute ago. Yeah. Remember, now we're used to hydraulic clutches now, but it never used to be. It used to be a cable clutch, and at the end of a cable clutch would have been one of these holding it together from the slave cylinder. Well, now it's hydraulic, so you've got a master cylinder, which is what your foot presses, and then your slave cylinder is what works the clutch. But before that, a lot of the cars, the older cars, remember, I'm going back 30 years, and the cars we were playing around with were probably 10 years plus each old. So we're talking about 40-year-old cars. And obviously these have come out of a set of brake calipers. Yeah, it looks a bit bent. So your clutch cables, your handbrake cables, there was no such thing as rear disc brakes, were there? They were all drum brakes, so you'd have the little lever coming out and you'd have another little pin go through it with another little split pin at the bottom of it. Some of these are no doubt have come off handbrakes. See, that's come out of somewhere. Quite nasty, isn't it? This little fat thing, that's got to be, oh, it's had some wear, isn't it? That's got to be a handbrake. Or it's got to be a see the pulling on it. Yeah, that's got to be a clutch cable or a under the pedals. Who's been upside down under the bottom trying to get one of these out to get your cable out, to get it out through the bulkhead because you've snapped your cable, your clutch cable, or even throttle cables. Yeah, but technologies, I know we use drive by wire now, don't we? I mean, even the bike is throttle by wire. Even the bike doesn't have a throttle cable on them now. So it's just how we used to use split pins on everything. Track ends, who remembers? You use a castle nut now. You need a nylock now on a track end. But how many of you have been taking the split pin out of the top of your castle nut on top of your track rod end, and then you've had to get this in and burst the track rod end off and smack it? Yeah. So they were on track rod ends, steering boxes, all they had pins on them. So it's sort of, things have improved. These go back to the older vehicles, the older, handbrake cables, clutch cables, throttle cables, all those sort of wherever there was a linkage needed somewhere. And I haven't got any to show you. I haven't got any track ends to. If I find one, I'll show you. But yeah, and of course a lot of things are greaseless now. You don't. The old way of maintaining stuff was you got a grease nipple and you maintained it. Now a lot of the joints are greaseless, aren't they? So even almost they don't last that long. We're in a throwaway society. But even now, we less maintain. I mean, you used to have to grease your handbrake cable. You used to all your joints, all your steering joints. You had to get up there and get the old grease gun and grease them up, didn't you? And that doesn't happen anymore. You just let them wear out and you throw it away. Yeah, they don't last so long now, but they just throw away. Go to the nearest car shop, get a new one, bang it on, and away you go. So this is sort of old school, older, and you can tell. Look, these have come out of older. Oh, that's had. Oh, look at that one. That's had plenty of wear on it. Yeah, that's been in there a long time. And like I say, the older, well, when we used to do it, if you had something break, if you needed an alternator or something like that, when we were running the Avengers, we didn't buy parts. We just bought the next scrapper, next car. So if you had an alternator gone, and the alternator was going to cost 50 quid, you were as well off just going by a whole car for 100 quid, and if you're lucky you might get a nice tyre out of it. You get a door panel, you get bits and pieces out of it. But in them days when we were at it, it was cheaper to go and buy a cheap car for parts rather than go to the parts shop to buy new parts. As long as it had what you wanted for at that time, everything else came along, it was a bonus. And I used to strip everything down to its component parts. So that's how these have come here. I've been stripping cars. That's where a lot of my nuts and bolts come. That's where the collecting of nuts and bolts started off. Because, you know, a car is you know, 1,000 pieces and it becomes a car, doesn't it? So that means it'll dismantle into another 1,000 pieces. And that's why I've got switches, handle, I've got some odd stuff, and the nuts and bolts, I'd strip it down, an item down to it, and I still do that now, to be honest with you. Washing machines, hoovers, all that sort of a thing. If I see it's got a lot of fixings on it, I'll strip it down to nothing and put it into my collection, which over the years has made, it's why the collection grows. And once you're that way minded, oh dear, when you're that way minded, that's why you end up with a whole load of stuff over the years and years and years. So fantastic conversation to have, and thank you very much, John, for giving me a mention. My subscribers have gone up. Woo-hoo-hoo! I'm nearly there. So just to give you a sort of flavour, these are all my older fixings. What's that? That's a screw out of a brake drum, isn't it? Feels like it's a screw out of a well-used, well-worn. Used to keep your brake drums on with those, didn't you? Yeah, and all these. Can you see the age of the fixings? They're well old, aren't they? They've all been pulled out and saved. What nutter collects body clips? That's you know, the indoor panel of a car. It was cardboard, wasn't it? And then sort of the cardboard inner lining sits on there, and you clip that into the body. That's what started all. See how old the thing is. They're not old because they've been sitting around. They're old because I've stripped them out of a car and collected them. All of these have come out of something that I've dismantled. Mainly cars, yeah. I mean, look, the old body clips on the body with the little panel clips, all that sort of, and of course it all eventually becomes as one, doesn't it? It does. So I've got everything for anything, providing you can find it. Of course, providing you can find it and you know what you're looking for, you know. So that's how this whole collection came apart. Yeah, you've seen me have new stock in, but a lot of it is stuff being dismantled and put everything in order, all that sort of a thing, you know. Mainly that's where all this lot's come from. This is just nuts and bolts out of cars, out of bell housings, out of props, stripped everything out to its back to its nuts and bolts, as you might say. There's just a few other ones. These are the old tubs, Jubilee clips. I think this is just anything that's come off that looks a bit different. Studs, wheel nuts, anything that's looked a bit different has gone into this pot. You know, look, little tracker end there. That's a throttle linkage, isn't it? Looks like it's a bent throttle linkage. Yeah. There's all sorts in here. All sorts. Even, what did we see the other day? Didn't we use like a fuse box off a Escort Mark 1 somewhere? We saw one somewhere, didn't we? But again, look, these are, oh, these look like newer. Still old. I don't know why. It just, one day we might just need one. But meanwhile, it's part of the collecting habit, as you might say. You know, a lot of these are AF. I mean, everything's gone to metric. We've got quite a bit of Whitworth stuff, but generally the Whitworth I've bought in. Yeah, some are metric, some are AF. So somebody's screaming somewhere. What's that? That's a flywheel bolt, isn't it? That's got to have come off a flywheel somewhere because of the fine thread and the Loctite on it. I'd say that's come out of a flywheel off an engine. I'd say, that's a guess, you know, and a guess. Yeah, so you've got my juices flowing now, haven't you? Talking all about this. These are probably spare bonnet clips. You know, you've seen competition cars, they pin down their bonnets, don't they? And I've got one somewhere. And I'll come through your bonnet and put an R clip through the front of it. Your boots and your bonnet. So these are spare clips for them, because you're always losing them, taking them out and losing them. Yeah, I was thinking wheel hubs. You know, we used to. That's a bit. But can you see the cattle nut and the hole? You'd line them up together, put them in. But wheel bearings now, they're all torqued up, aren't they? They're a different sort of bearing now. But it used to be, you'd have a bearing and you'd have a load of grease around it, and you'd take, if you wanted to take your hub off, you took the split pin out of the cuttle nut that was holding the hub, and it would take the hub off. Do you remember? Who remembers that? Who remembers over tightening wheel bearings all the time? Yeah. The only trouble with these little boxes of multiple choice of spring, once you've been stupid enough to drop it or tip it open and the lid opens on you, and you've got to try and put them all back together in the right place, haven't you? Reggie, you're such an idiot. Oh, look at this now. Look at all this work that you've created for yourself. Damn.